4 requirements to life and health, and that is air. You've got to breathe.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that one. Water. You've got to drink, stay hydrated. Food. We're talking about the food today. And the 4th is sleep. Try to change the transportation system. That's what the meds would do. Block the reuptake. Versus improve the factory. So proper nutrition not only helps with the gut's production of various neurotransmitters, it actually helps with the brain's production of various neurotransmitters. Hello and welcome to Design for More, sponsored by Come and Reason Ministries and Honey Lake Clinic. I'm Dr. Tim Jennings, and I'm joined today by Annalisa Moretto, one of our therapists here at the clinic, and James Johnson, our chief chaplain. And today we're going to be talking about food, mood, and mental clarity. Food, mood, and mental clarity. You know, here at our clinic, we're very holistic, so we take nutrition very important. But what questions do you guys have about food or concerns or things you'd like to share about what we eat, what we put in our body, and impact on brain and mental well-being?
I'm actually really looking forward to this discussion. Having worked with our patients here, I'll consistently hear adjustments when they're coming into treatment of, this food is different than what I'm used to. I miss my burgers. I miss this, and that. But within a couple of weeks, indicating that they feel like that brain fog has lessened and they're able to concentrate and attributing that to food. So I'm really excited about this conversation and connecting the dots of what we're doing here at Honey Lake and also having worked in an eating disorder facility as well and the messages about food.
No, you're not wrong. Food makes an actual big difference in our physical health and what's happening in our brain. I don't even know where to start because I have so much data in my head about this. And so let's just kind of throw out conversations about it. But the typical American diet is highly inflammatory and unhealthy. What we do here at the clinic is we give an anti-inflammatory diet, which is either, and the studies show, and not what we're doing at the clinic, but what the studies show is there's 2 dietary patterns that are actually beneficial for brain function, cognition, memory, and structure, volume of your brain, and keeps your brain healthy as you age. And one dietary pattern that was looked at that's very damaging, it interferes with cognition, memory, structure, and accelerates aging. And the 2 healthy patterns that actually keep your brain healthy is a whole food plant-based diet, and the other one was a Mediterranean diet, which is high in fish oils and also lots of plant-based type foods. But your primary meat source is fish and maybe chicken, those types of things, cooked in a healthy way with olive oil and these types of things. The unhealthy diet is your typical American diet. Fast foods, junk foods, sweet foods, burgers, fried foods. The cooking method of frying foods actually causes what are called advanced glycation end products. These are products that are formed by the high heat that when you eat enter your body and increase inflammation and accelerate aging. And so anything you fry, whether it's like French fries or onion rings or chicken or whatever, the frying and the high heat or searing on a grill, the high heat will create these byproducts that increase inflammation and accelerate aging. So the cooking method also is an impact in addition to the foods alone. So I could just keep going. I'm going to pause there, but you're not wrong. Our patients will, within a couple of weeks, as you detox their bodies from all the crud they've been putting in it, they will actually have more energy, they'll be more alert, they'll sleep better, their minds will be sharper, and we notice that happening here.
One of the things that I'm curious about is the connection. I love hearing all the health stuff, but a lot of times we get pushback, and personally as a guy who grew up on that unhealthy diet, pushback naturally happens because it loses some of its comfort. That we call it, these comfort foods. They're heavy. They make you feel like you've actually eaten something, that they sit with you and they actually give you those, that satisfaction of, oh, I filled myself. Is there a connection in the satisfaction area that we can work ourselves with critical thinking to help overwhelm, because I feel like there's a disconnect between our feelings, our desire for selfishness and pleasure when we eat versus the knowledge of knowing, I know this is unhealthy, but it makes me feel good.
So what you've described there is feeling-based instead of truth-based decision.
Yes.
It's always harmful. I mean, just on any subject matter. I know this woman is, cheating on her husband, but she makes me feel good.
Mhm.
I know that I need to pay my rent, but it feels good to buy lottery tickets. The comfort. Every addict that I've treated gets comfort from their alcohol, their heroin, their cocaine. They use it. It gives them that emotional comfort.
It makes sense. A lot of sense. Yeah.
People look at porn for emotional comfort. So this feeling-based decision-making that is contrary to objective truth, facts, what's healthy is, and James tells us that no one should say God tempts, because God doesn't tempt anyone. We're each tempted, we're dragged away and enticed by our own desires, our feelings. This is the path to self-destruction. And you need to understand, in America today, food that you buy in stores is not the food that you would have raised on your farms.
Yeah.
Even if you weren't a plant-based eater, the chickens and the beef that you raised on your farm is different than what you get in the store. Chemically, hormonally, and the processed foods that were sold in stores today have been constructed through research to create near addictive responses to get you to eat more of their food. They have studied what gives you the most positive pleasure and experience, and they keep tweaking the foods to get you to go, oh, I love this, and create addictive responses. Foods, drinks as well. Coca-Cola originally got named because it had cocaine in it.
Right. It's medicine.
And then early in last century, they outlawed the cocaine, and so they searched what can we put it, so they put caffeine in it. These drinks are designed to create a neurobiological response with sugar and or caffeine, and when you have a high sugar experience, you get a burst of insulin and serotonin that will cause a transient mood experience, but also a brain fog. If you eat something super sweet, you will find you're not going to focus as well in a couple hours after that, for a couple of hours after that, because you get this burst of these neurochemical changes that actually make it hard. And studies show that you will have a transient memory problem after a high sugar load. So also the foods, and I don't know how much we're getting into all of this, but the foods you ate change the bacteria that are in your gut. The bacteria in your gut produce neurochemicals that go to your brain through your bloodstream.
So let me make sure I'm hearing you right. The things that are going on in my digestive system, like my stomach, are actually producing chemicals that influence what my brain does.
100%.
Okay.
100%. Okay. And the foods you eat will change the population of the types of bacteria, depending on the foods you eat. Your diet will shift that. Shift it in one day, depending on what you eat. And those bacteria produce different types of neurochemicals and various byproducts that affect your brain. And so the Mediterranean diet and the plant-based diet cause your gut to produce good bacteria that keep your mood elevated and keep your gut healthy. The American diet, the fast food diet, the junk diet, the high sugar diet causes and typical like red meat, bacon, pork, this diet causes your gut to produce bad bacteria that not only negatively affects mood, affects the tight junctions in your gut, contributing to leaky gut, which allows more products to sneak into your bloodstream from what you've eaten that shouldn't get there, that increases more inflammation in your body. Contributes to all this contributes to more obesity if you get the bad, and the good bacteria contributes to normal weight. Bad bacteria contributes to obesity. They actually did a study on mice, very interesting study, and these mice were cloned mice, And one group of mice, they said a group of clone, this is going to be your experimental group. Then they had other mice, and these are all cloned over here, okay? And then they had a group of obese mice and a group of thin mice, and they decolonized, cleansed the colons of the cloned mice, the experimental group, randomized them 2 groups, and one group got, or put them into 2 groups. One group got their colons recolonized with bacteria from the obese mice, and the other group got their colons colonized with the bacteria from the thin mice, and then they gave them the same diets and let them eat the same food. And those who were colonized with the bacteria from the obese mice became obese, and those who were thin mice did not. And so we change the bacteria in our gut based on the foods we eat. And the bacteria in our gut impact not only neurochemicals in our brain, they impact the immune system, and our immune system responds. We'll actually turn on certain lymphocytes based on the foods we eat. If we're eating a plant-based healthy diet, we will turn on these lymphocytes. And guess what those lymphocytes will do? They cause a second messenger cascade, which will cause mitochondria to be built, if you will, in your fat cells, and it'll turn your white fat into brown fat on your body. Brown fat has mitochondria. Brown fat is the fat your body burns to keep you warm, or when you need energy, it will burn it up and turn it into energy to help you if you're exercising. White fat doesn't do that. And so obesity happens when you have lots of white fat, not brown fat. But your diet will take the white fat you have and turn it to brown fat where you can burn it off if you're eating a healthy diet based on this cascade of events, because your healthy diet changes an immune response that causes this cascade to occur. Okay, so it's not just neurochemical. Our foods make a huge difference. And this is why what we do here to get our patients well, we want to reduce inflammation of the body. So let's talk about the inflammatory part. Study done on 9,000 adults looking at those who ate fast food, junk food, croissants, pizzas, donuts, candies, these types of things. Burgers, hot dogs, this is all fast food stuff, compared to those who didn't. Those who had a junk food diet had a significant, was it a 40% higher rate of depression than those who didn't? And it was dose dependent. The more junk food, the more depression, because these are inflammatory foods. If you increase inflammation in your body, the inflammation translates into your brain, causing inflammatory changes in your brain that alters how the genes are being expressed in your brain, shutting down important proteins your brain needs. And that is the ultimate consequence of when people are in depression. And so your diet directly impacts that. Moving to a plant-based or Mediterranean diet reduces inflammation, stops this inflammatory cascade, and helps turn the genes back on in the brain that produce the proteins people need. And studies show that young people, as college students, who started taking probiotics and prebiotics had a significant improvement, statistically improved mood within like 3 to 4 weeks just from the dietary change. So dietary changes can actually have antidepressant benefit because of reducing inflammation, number one, and the new healthy bacteria producing neurotransmitters that are healthy for your brain.
Wow.
So we're talking about a bottom-up approach, but what about a top-down? So say, for instance, you have a patient that is diagnosed with major depressive disorder, and they've had really significant traumatic things have happened in their life, stressor after stressor, and they've gotten to a point where they feel like they can't care for their basic needs. Functioning is a challenge. Making healthy meals is a challenge. Maybe they're struggling financially as well. So their way of taking care of their body is, well, I'm going to go and get Chick-fil-A. I'm going to get some fast food. I'm going to get McDonald's, Burger King, whatever that may be, because at least I'm nourishing myself. But now they're getting that message. Actually, you've got impact to your mind, but now you've got impact to your gut, and you're putting yourself in a really compromised position. So in what way can we help support them make these right decisions without shaming them for doing the minimum that they can at this moment?
So that's a brilliant question, and you're exactly right. What you described gets in a negative reinforcing loop. because they're inflamed because of all the stress. So when you're mentally stressed, you activate your stress circuitry in your brain, which activates your immune system, which causes inflammation from mental stress if it doesn't turn off. Chronic inflammation from mental stress can lead to depression, but then the chronic inflammation and the chronic mental stress may lead someone to comfort food eat, and that actually contributes to worsening inflammatory cascades and potentially worsening depression. So it's a negative reinforcing. Brilliantly said. And if you keep on that for some time, you may not get the green leafy vegetables and the fruits you need, and then you may get B vitamin compromise or vitamin D compromise. And if you don't have proper vitamins, then your body can't do can't produce the various neurotransmitters and other proteins that you need, and that can make you more vulnerable to depression, and so the nutritional element just kind of keeps spiraling out of control. So how can we help them? One would be education, not shame. It is what it is. We understand why you're doing that, because it's easy, because you're tired, because it's hard to make food. Yet at the same time, all that may be true. This still is not the healthy path to go down, and you're not going to get well doing this. So there needs to be some education there. Is there something we can do? And of course, we want to do something neurobiologically to help their brain get turned back on. So if they're here at our clinic, we have many things that we do for them. The psychotherapeutic piece, which the nutritional piece, the exercise piece, but we also have direct interventions for somebody in depression, whether it's antidepressant medication or transcranial magnetic stimulation to get the brain working again. So we want to do all that. But how do you help the person who maybe is living alone? I don't know that you can. I mean, you can educate, unless you have somebody that, if they're not willing to actually make those choices, and they're just too depressed, and they're just going to keep buying junk food and ordering pizza from Pizza Hut or whatever, what can you do unless you have somebody who's going to go over and start cooking meals for them? But even if you cook meals for them, the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. There are some patients that come here and complain because they want their junk food. We won't give it to them here. So they can leave here, but they generally don't for that reason. But they will be grumbling at least for the initial weeks. Often by the time they're feeling so much better, and they begin to learn through the education the benefit of the anti-inflammatory foods, that they actually stop the complaining most. But you could see at home, a person may not tolerate a couple of weeks of a healthy diet because they're so used to their junk food or their Coca-Colas or whatever it is they've been doing, that they won't make that change. And understand, health requires harmony with the laws of health. Doctors cannot get patients well while violating the laws of health. And one of the corruptions of our whole healthcare system has fallen into the trap of symptom management of chronic illnesses rather than dealing with the cause of these chronic illnesses to get people well. It's not focused on wellness. It's focused on management through prescription meds of symptoms. Whether it's mental health or others, there's very little focus on actual lifestyle changes, dietary changes, exercise changes, sleep changes to put people in harmony with the laws of health. And so we have people chronically, 33% of Americans are sleep deprived. Well, you can't actually be healthy and feel well if you're chronically sleep deprived. It's a physiological reality. Most Americans are sedentary. Well, you can't be healthy if you're not doing moderate exercise of some kind. It could be walking 30 minutes 5 times a week, but you can't be healthy if you're not going to do that. You're going to be inflamed. And then the majority are eating inflammatory, destructive, harmful diets. And then you add in other things, smoking, alcohol, marijuana, all toxic to the body, no health benefits. It's all destructive. And you put that in, you're inflaming and causing more neurobiological problems. And so so how do you get people well? If you're going to actually get them well, you've got to get them to move into the laws and harmony with the laws of health. Does that make sense?
Wow, that makes sense.
But a lot of medicine now is letting them live, and this is what people want. I want to eat any junk I want and get Ozempic and not get fat.
In modern day tapeworms, yeah.
Yes, that's what that is. Yes. It is, and tapeworms would actually probably be healthier than Ozempic. No, seriously.
Wow.
No, seriously. A helminth infection, worm infection, causes the immune system to kick up T regulatory cells. T regulatory cells, these are a type of a lymphocyte which calms down the rest of the immune system, and you have less allergies, you have less autoimmune diseases. For instance, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, eczema, these autoimmune diseases are much less when you have T regulatory cells kicked up. And what turns on T regulatory cells is some type of a worm infection sometime in your life. Less reactant to like poison ivies, your skin won't react as well, so forth. So it might actually be better if if they were going to do that, to have a tapeworm infection for a period of time and then clear it and lose your weight, than to actually take some of these drugs.
Wow.
Be cheaper too.
And that's a thing
Not that tapeworms are healthy. I'm not saying that.
not medical advice.
Yeah.
I know we have listeners that are from other countries, and we could probably go down this rabbit hole too far. But as a kid that grew up farming, one of the things that my grandfather explained was that after the Depression and the great fallout of monetary systems to keep the farmers in business, the government began providing subsidies to them, that the government would pay them to produce crops to help get, food back on the table to keep them in business. And one of the big crops that is heavily subsidized and still is corn. And when I asked my grandfather, well, what are we going to do with all this corn? I mean, as the economy improved, decades later, we're still getting these subsidies, that he was explaining to me that they make high fructose corn syrup out of it. And I started looking at how many foods in our society are filled with those. And according to some of my other friends that still work in agronomics and stuff, that the government is still providing these subsidies, even though it's long since the Great Depression happened, which got me thinking, high fructose corn syrup is a type of sugar, right? Are there other types of sugar besides that may be healthier, or all sugar?
So let's talk. I'm glad you brought that up. It's well done. High fructose corn syrup is 10 times more oxidizing to your body than natural sugar. 10 times. So now natural sugar is not healthy for you. A little bit won't hurt you, but what we get in American diet is lots of sugar. But just as a comparison, the oxidative stress on your body from one 12-ounce soda with high fructose corn syrup, you could drink 10 with sugar. It's 10 times more oxidizing. I don't drink, only in rare circumstances, traveling and I'm about to fall asleep, and I might drink a Coca-Cola with some high fruit. But I've cut high fruit. It will age you. You will accelerate your aging. It will cause you more inflammation. It will cause you more mental health problems. You shouldn't take, as far as you can, don't eat or take anything with high fructose corn syrup. Look on the labels. I look on the labels there all the time. Look on the labels. Nope, put it back. Labels of various maybe salad dressings or whatever. High fructose corn syrup, don't use it. Don't use it. And now you'll find ketchup used to have high fructose corn, and some of them still do, but you can find the ones with the green labels, and the ones with the green labels, you'll look on and it says sugar. Oh, okay, I'll use the sugar. Okay. And so if I ever want a soda, I get the ones from Mexico. The ones from Mexico actually have sugar in them, not high fructose corn syrup. So I would encourage you to cut that out. It's just terrible. It's terrible.
But like a fruit would have a different kind of sugar than high fructose, because that's corn.
So natural sugars in eating piece of fruit, fructose, okay, because you're eating the piece of fruit, you're also getting all the fiber that goes with it. And high fiber in your diet has a different consequence on how your body responds to that fruit. So in my view, there's nothing harmful about eating fruits in their natural state.
But
juice, your health,
instead of eating an apple with all that fiber, drinking 8 ounces of apple juice.
Yes. That if it's natural apple juice, still better than Hawaiian punch.
Right.
Okay.
But a lot of times I've seen people that will say, "Oh, it's fruit juice. I can drink as much of that as I want to because it's natural." It's still sugar, right?
Yeah. One I would tell you it's very, very healthy. And I've been drinking a glass of it every day for more than a decade, maybe almost 2 decades now, is pomegranate juice. Pomegranate juice, and there's multiple studies that show highly anti-inflammatory. And there's studies that show that it clears amyloid protein out of your brain, which is the protein that builds up associated with Alzheimer's disease. So, so I'll mention, if you'd like a resource, my book, The Aging Brain, Proven Steps to Prevent Dementia and Sharpen Your Mind, has multiple chapters in here on food preparation, how unhealthy foods oxidize. There's a whole section on nutrients that are beneficial for your brain. The pomegranate juice and the studies are mentioned in the book about how that slows aging and reduces your risk of dementia, clears amyloid out of the brain. And so that's a juice that I drink 1 glass of every day. Except maybe when I'm not at home, because it's hard to get it when you're traveling. But yes, just It's better for the fruit to get the fiber with it
Mm-hmm.
than to not get the fiber with it. But there's not a lot of fiber in pomegranates if you eat pomegranates anyway, so must eat the seeds.
So we're talking about checking labels and verifying what we're putting into our bodies. So what wisdom would you share with someone who's struggling or have struggled with their appearance or disordered eating? And now they're wanting to make this conscious effort to be healthy again, unprocessed foods, and they're going back to, okay, I need to check labels again, and not turning that into another battleground for them.
But so you have to get to that balance of actually doing what's reasonable and healthy. There is that eating disorder known as orthorexia now, which is these people who start restricting, not because they have a body image issue. They're okay with their body. It's not the I need to lose weight, I don't feel fat. It's I need to be healthy. I need to be healthy. And they get so caught up in what's healthy, so-called, that they're actually doing things in their diet that are unhealthy. They restrict so much that they get down to eating only white potatoes or something. And that's not healthy. And so there has to be a balance. Why are you looking? What's the motive? Are you doing this out of fear? Or are you doing this out of love? Doing this to glorify God because you want to have the spirit temple in the best condition? Or are you doing this you're afraid you're going to harm yourself? If it's a fear motivation, you're almost always going to get caught in the trap of some obsessional thing. So the anorexics, are all fear driven. Their motivation is fear. The bulimics, it's fear. And then the orthorexics, it's fear. So I would say, look at the motivation. Why are you looking? I'm afraid. What are you afraid? I'm not afraid. I just don't want it. Yeah, I want to be healthy.
That makes sense.
Okay. And that's why, because I'm not afraid, I understand reasonableness. If you drink an occasional Coca-Cola 1 or 2 a year with high fructose, it's probably not going to, in my view, have a measurable health impact on your life. If you drink them daily, it will. So if I'm in a circumstance, like I said, I'm driving and I need one once a year to stay awake so I don't get in a wreck, okay, I'll drink one. But I don't drink them regularly because they're not healthy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to have that balance of reasonableness.
And this may be something that may be too much to cover, but toss sodas out. What about coffee?
Oh, good question.
I mean, we live in at least my part of the world, the coffee culture is pretty big. In the military, man, coffee's a thing. I know because you've been there. But what do we do with that as far as, is that possible to include in a healthy diet, or should we stay away? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think the science is pretty strong that, before we get to the coffee, people need to understand that there are four requirements to life and health. Some might include 5. I'll throw the one that some people include, but 4, and that is air. You've got to breathe.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that one. Water. Got to drink, stay hydrated. Food. We're talking about the food today. And the 4th is sleep. It's a physical requirement to life. If you actually are kept from sleeping for a time, you'll eventually die. Okay, it's a physical requirement. Not only to life, but to health. If you're not getting adequate sleep, then you will actually have health problems. You'll accelerate your aging, higher risk of dementia, more mental health problems, cognitive and focus and memory problems, behavior problems, impulse control problems if you're sleep deprived. More mistakes. Everybody knows sleep deprived individuals. The Exxon Valdez, okay, it wrecked. The pilot was sleep deprived. Does that make sense? So 4. The 5th is something that we'll throw in is physical activity, exercise. Yes, you thrive with physical activity. You're healthier with it, but there are some people who've had spinal cord injuries and so forth, and with these 4, they can still be healthy. So the 5th one is for the most full and vibrant, yes, but you can still live well without that if you're in a paralytic state and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So with that one in mind, when we talk about caffeine, we have to always be including what impact is it having on sleep. Okay, because I'm going to talk about there are health benefits to coffee and caffeinated coffee, as long as it's not interfering with sleep. And so the way I look at caffeinated coffee, you should look at it much more like a natural medicine.
Okay.
If you have certain health conditions, or it interferes with sleep, you shouldn't take it. Or people who already have certain vascular diseases, they shouldn't take it because it can constrict the blood flow. If they have very poorly controlled seizure disorder, they shouldn't take it because caffeine lowers the threshold to having seizures. And so somebody that's drinking a lot of caffeine with a seizure disorder may have more seizures. So there are situations where you don't want to take it. But let's say somebody can drink coffee and they still sleep the normal 7 to 8 hours a night and they're not having compromise with it. The data shows that 3 cups of coffee a day reduces all causes of mortality. Reduces diabetes, obesity, it reduces dementia, Alzheimer's dementia risks, and cancers were reduced. So there is a health benefit to this. There's only 2 caffeinated drinks that show benefit. Caffeinated coffee, black. You're putting cream and or sweeteners in it, it actually becomes harmful. So black coffee can be beneficial, and green tea. There's only 2 in the studies that have shown to be beneficial. Caffeine in any other drink is harmful that they've studied. All the sodas with caffeine, it actually causes health problems. It does not protect your brain, does not provide any benefit. Caffeine alone, if you take caffeine tablets, no benefit to it at all. It's not the caffeine that's the benefit. It happens that with both the green tea and the coffee, those 2 substances naturally not only have caffeine, they have a bunch of what are called phytochemicals. And the combination of those phytochemicals with the caffeine are just right that they cause anti-inflammatory and health protecting benefits. Now, the studies show you can also get a lot of those benefits with decaffeinated coffee. So my recommendation is for people to evaluate, drink black coffee. If you can sleep well, if you have sleep problems, cut out the caffeine. Maybe you have 1 caffeinated early in the morning. Maybe you do 2 decafs later. Does that make sense? Absolutely. Yeah, but that's the way to do that.
Not going down to my local coffee shop and getting a frappe.
No. All that stuff's harmful. They put the cream in it, put the sugar in it. Now, if you have a generally very healthy diet with low sugar, so low sugar, you don't eat many sweets, hardly ever, and you have one daily cup of coffee with 1 teaspoon of sugar a day, that will not worsen your outcome. Teaspoon of actual sugar in an otherwise low sugar diet.
Okay.
But if you have a low sugar diet, have 1 cup of coffee a day, and you put artificial sweetener in, aspartame, then these, 1 a day, increases your risk of Alzheimer's dementia. The artificial sweeteners.
Alzheimer's dementia.
Yep.
All
measurable
across the board, or
Yep. The only one that I believe, if it's natural stevia, because it's a plant, that actually can also have benefit if it's in a natural form. If it gets highly processed, however, then the processing may add chemicals in. But a natural stevia is also beneficial.
Okay. That was my question, so you should have just waited. Yeah.
Glad to learn that I can continue with my coffee.
There you go.
Yeah, no. So that's right. As long as you're not having sleep-related problems from it.
Yeah.
Well, while we're talking about beverages, what about, I mean, obviously maybe this sounds simple, but what are the benefits of, okay, so I got rid of all the sodas, 1 or 2 cups of coffee black in the morning, water. What does water, I mean, obviously, we need it to survive, but what does it do for our mental health to be hydrated?
And that's exactly right. Hydration is very important. When you get dehydrated, the cells, so hydration is part of your body's system of removing waste and toxins from the cells of the body. And if you don't remove those wastes and toxins, that increases oxidative stress on the body. And over the course of time, that accelerates aging. And in real time, if you don't have proper hydration, then the cells will actually shrink a little bit because we're dehydrated, and then they don't function as well. So your cognition and mental elasticity can be impaired. You're not as mentally sharp if you're dehydrated. So, and then it can potentially affect mood and so forth. You wanted to say something? Yeah.
When you say proper hydration, what is proper hydration?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there is certainly a human size element involved. When you say hydration, are you asking what's the amount to drink? Well, that actually depends on what you're doing, doesn't it? If you're down here in Florida and you're working outside, or in Florida and you're inside all day, the person working outside will need to drink a lot more than the person working inside, won't they?
Yeah.
Okay. So proper hydration, do we try to measure that by the amount of stuff we're drinking, water we're drinking, or measure it by some other physiologic measure of our being? Color of our urine.
Okay.
Color of our urine. So when I tell people to stay hydrated, because I put them on a medicine called lithium, and lithium is cleared by the kidneys, and we have a therapeutic blood level we can measure. Now, lithium is a salt. So those who don't know what lithium is, it's a medication you can treat mood disorder like bipolar. It's a salt. A salt is a ionic compound, like table salt is sodium chloride, and it's in crystal form. But when you put it in water, where does it go? Where'd your salt go? Put it in water and stir. Where's it go?
Dissolves.
Yeah, it dissolves.
It dissolves. So ionic compounds dissolve. And if you taste the water, it's salty.
Yeah.
Lithium carbonate, is a salt. When you take it into your body, it dissolves into the fluids of the body, just like the salt does. Okay. And we know that a certain concentration level is therapeutic. Put a tablespoon of salt in a cup of water and stir it up. It will have a certain salinity, certain saltiness. Let's say not a tablespoon of water in a gallon. Tablespoon in a gallon of water. You stir it up, you can still taste it, salt in there. Now you begin boiling off to a half gallon. There's a half gallon. You put a tablespoon in, it's certain saltiness. And then you boil off half the water. Now it's half a gallon. What happens when you taste it?
Salty.
Yeah, it's saltier.
Mm-hmm.
Is there more salt in there?
No.
Still only 1 tablespoon.
Yeah.
But there's less water, so it's more concentrated or less dilute.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a concern when you treat somebody with lithium. Once you get at the therapeutic level, okay, that's their level in normal hydration. If they dehydrate, you haven't put more lithium in. You've taken more water away, but the concentration can rise, therefore. And then a person could potentially become toxic because if you go too high, not because you've given them too much, but because they don't have enough water in their body. You following me?
Yeah.
So part of the therapeutic approach when you're treating somebody with lithium is you emphasize this to them and explain to them what symptoms of if they're getting dehydrated, there's certain symptoms they'll see, but the importance of staying hydrated. And I tell them, and you can tell you're hydrated when you look at your urine, and it is a very light yellow. If it's dark yellow, you're not drinking enough. Drink more.
Okay.
And so that would be the very simple test. Look at your urine, and you look at your urine basically before you dilute it in the commode, as it's coming out, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what you're looking for. But it needs to be a very light, pale yellow, and then you're drinking enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And it's good for brain health. Your brain stays hydrated, good for body health, and it also slows aging if you hydrate regularly.
And drink more water. All
Yeah.
right. Now, this may be, I'm just asking all my nutrition questions today, but one of the things that I was thinking, you mentioned the lithium, the concentration of the dose, like does eating these healthier diets, staying hydrated, getting all these extra things out, does that improve metabolic function, the actual processing of the body as far as like, energy production, utilizing nutrients more in the foods we eat? Does changing your diet improve your body's ability to actually utilize the nutrition you're putting in?
100%.
Okay.
Oh yeah, 100%. For a variety of reasons. Better nutrition, and you want the proper vitamins and so forth. Better nutrition, but the better nutrition affects the bacteria in the gut, which affects the tight junctions of the gut lining, and it does away with or prevents you from getting leaky gut. If you got leaky gut, you get more inflammation. Anything increases inflammation, which is inflammatory cytokines, okay, immune system response, interferes with synaptic signaling. If you interfere with synaptic signaling, you get fatigue, malaise, concentration problems, fogginess, and aches and pains all over your body. So yes, a healthy diet will reduce the inflammatory cascades, remove these cytokines from the synaptic signaling. You're more alert, you have more energy, you're sharper. It may not be, and potentially, depending on what's going on at a cellular level, you may actually be producing more energy on a cellular level, but you're certainly going to have the sense of more energy when the neurons and the synaptic signalings are more efficient.
Okay. And the reason I was asking that is I was thinking about, you're talking about the dosage, like with the lithium. If a person is getting mental health treatment and medication is part of that treatment, if they have an improved diet, does it logically follow that the medication that they are being put on will be have a higher level of efficacy then because your body's metabolizing
Okay,
it
so
better?
let's talk about meds and nutrition.
Okay.
So let's talk about depression. 50% of people with depression have a genetic mutation, 50%, in which they can't metabolize folic acid from food into the methylated form, and only the methylated form crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it's the methylated form of folate in the brain is required as a cofactor for your brain to make dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. 50% of people with depression have this gene mutation. They can't. So folic acid in green leafy vegetables and fruits and so forth. We get plenty of unmetabolized folic acid if you're eating, any type of fruits and vegetables. But they're getting that, but it's not being metabolized, so it can't get into the brain. And so we supplement patients with methylated folate. It's a supplement you can take. It's already methylated, and it will cross into the brain, okay? Now, I'm telling you this to answer your question about the medication, because antidepressants do not cause the brain to make the neurotransmitters. L-methylfolate's a cofactor for your brain to make dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. Antidepressants do not cause the body or brain to make neurotransmitters. Antidepressants affect the machinery that transport them. So if one neuron is talking to another neuron, there's a little gap in between them called a synapse. The neuron that wants to send a message will release a neurochemical into the gap, which will signal receptors over here, like serotonin or norepinephrine or dopamine. After they release that neurochemical into the gap, there are little pumps, reuptake pumps, like vacuum cleaners. Suck that back in. They send the signal, suck it back in, conserve that resource, repackage it, be ready for the next signal. Antidepressants, classics like Prozac and Zoloft and Lexapro and Fexer and so forth, will shut down pumps on various neurons. If they're serotonin reuptake inhibitors, if you've heard serotonin reuptake inhibitors, reuptake, and these are the reuptake pumps. They're shutting the pumps down. So when the neurons release the neurochemical, it stays out here longer, signaling longer. That actually will cause a cascade of second messengers, which will go into the DNA of the cell, which will cause protein production changes, and that has an antidepressant benefit. But it's the medicines are working here. Okay, so back to our metaphor. So I'll give you the metaphor now of the difference between the nutrition and the medicines. Little Debbie factory makes Little Debbies. Trucks transport them around. What happens if the factory no longer has flour or peanut butter, metaphor for the L-methylfolate, which is required to make what goes in the trucks? And so the factory slows down its production, is not producing enough of, and we try to speed the trucks up. We try to change the transportation system. That's what the meds would do, block the reuptake versus improve the factory. So proper nutrition not only helps with the gut's production of various neurotransmitters, it actually helps with the brain's production of various neurotransmitters. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And so just giving antidepressants alone actually antidepressants alone fail more than they help. I think it's about 35% of patients have good outcomes with antidepressants alone. So 2 out of 3 don't. Antidepressants are not magic. They do have measurable clinical benefit, and some people absolutely life-changing benefit, but many patients have taken antidepressants and not gotten well. Why? Because antidepressants will not give you L-methylfolate. Antidepressants will not fix a thyroid problem if you have hypothyroid. Antidepressants will not fix sleep apnea if you have a sleep apnea problem. Antidepressants will not fix a bad marriage if you're getting beaten at home. And there are lots of causes for people to be in depression. Antidepressants will not cause the reduction of inflammation from a very bad inflammatory diet. Is follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah,
And so
makes sense.
antidepressants can have this effect, but this is why what we do here at Honey Lake is we take that whole person approach. And everything we're doing is designed to move people back in harmony with the laws of health, reduce the inflammatory cascades, get good sleep hygiene, get physical exercise that produces the interleukin-10 and the neurotrophins that your brain needs, get rid of the junk in food and high sugar loads and high fructose corn syrup, reduce that inflammatory, put good anti-inflammatory healthy foods in, get the gut producing healthy bacteria, tighten up those loose junctions, reduce the leaky gut inflammation going on, and get good psychotherapy and deal with the spiritual issues if that's what's going on, resolve the guilt and shame, etc. The whole program. And you know what? You can't have health while violating the laws of health. You can't avoid healthy outcomes when you harmonize with them.
Yeah.
Does that help you?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Actually, just recently, I didn't get to go down a research rabbit hole, but just yesterday I saw a quick little video indicating that saffron, the spice, actually has very similar effect as Lexapro. Have you guys heard that?
So I have, when you say similar effect, are you saying effect on mood, or are you saying effect on mechanism of action, that it's also a serotonin reuptake inhibitor?
On mood specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So mechanistically, yes, I've actually seen that it does have an antidepressant benefit. Mechanistically, why? Probably by reducing inflammation, but I don't know. I haven't seen a mechanism. Did it explain a mechanism of why?
I didn't get to go down that rabbit hole yet, but I will actually.
Yes.
Fascinating. Yeah.
It is, because it changes your perspective from reliance on medication to viewing food as medication.
It is. No, there's no question.
Yeah.
A healthy diet has an antidepressant benefit. You change people's diet, and it's measurable, equal to antidepressants. Also, the changing of the diet reduces your risk of dementia as you age.
Yeah.
Putting people on antidepressants does not.
So if we began to see food as medicine, one of the complaints that I've heard people use, and I've used in the past for not eating healthier, is, it's more expensive. It costs more money. Well, then I go to the pharmacy and I pay for my medication, and it's expensive. So if I start seeing my food as medicine, and I say, wow, where do I want to spend my money? If I actually need a medication for my health, obviously I want to take that. But if I have the choice between eating better and not having to be put on a medication, as opposed to just having to be on it and keep eating my garbage diet, then that helps my brain a little bit with the perspective.
Yeah.
So I also have concerns, since we're talking about food today. I have concerns with two other elements that we've done recently, which is genetically modified foods.
Yeah.
There is data out there. I've got some of it listed in my book, that genetically modified foods increase obesity. And I'm concerned that genetically modified foods increase inflammation and leaky gut. Maybe you guys aren't old enough, but I can tell you, when I was a kid growing up and I was young in this country, we did not have all of this gluten intolerance going on.
Yeah.
It didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
We have all this terrible gluten intolerance. Why? Because it's genetically modified wheat. Something's changed. And when you modify things genetically, you change gene expression, new proteins, structures, and so forth and so on. I think there's strong evidence that GMO foods are not healthy for us, and increase inflammation and chronic illnesses. Now, is that accidental, or is that by design? Now, some have argued, because these big corporations who own the patents on the GMO foods are also, invested in, if not controlling, many of the pharmaceuticals that treat the chronic diseases that are caused by the foods.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that's what's going on. It's a question I'm asking, but it's big money.
Who's benefiting from it?
Sell the food, and then sell the treatment for the chronic illness. And there's an argument to be made there. But regardless of that argument, GMO foods, there's strong evidence. And in Europe, they don't allow the GMO foods, and they have markedly less obesity than we have, and less chronic illnesses than we have. So and then the other thing was the pesticides in the foods. It's quite unhealthy for us. And then recently, as you know, RFK Jr. is coming out, and I am personally thankful for what he is doing to get these petroleum-based colors and dyes out of our foods. These are not healthy, and there's strong evidence that they contribute. These dyes contribute to neurocognitive problems, attention problems, focus problems, mental health problems, inflammatory problems. So good for him for moving to try to get healthier foods in this country.
Yeah.
But you notice he gets opposition. Who's opposed to healthy food? Who would be opposed to healthy food?
People selling the unhealthy food.
Well, not just selling it, but understand,
Yeah.
many of these same products sold in Canada don't have these petroleum products in them. So they already have production facilities producing them in this world without these products right across our border. Well, why aren't they producing them for us that way? Why do they keep putting these products in, putting these inflammatory, harmful chemicals in our products then? Why? Why would they do that? I mean, if it was like, well, we've never even figured out how to do this yet. It'd take new production facilities, it'd be very hard, it costs us a lot. I could see, okay, all right, there's an obstacle, but they're already producing them without it across the border.
I've actually seen pictures online of the labels for ranch dressing or mayo, whatever it is.
Tricks.
Yeah,
Fruit
it was
Loops.
significantly
Yep,
shorter
yep,
in different
yep.
countries, and even with like skincare products as well.
So why is it and America has the, you know, huge physical obesity problems, inflammatory chronic conditions, and how many people are on 4 or 5 medicines a day?
You're on 4 or 5 medications, and then you're going to see your PCP, and you're not getting any education on how you can change your diet.
Yep.
You're not getting a live interpretation of your results.
And this is the corruption of the medical education system and the what I call the corporation of medicine that has happened since I went to medical school. When I went to medical school, 75% of doctors owned their own practice. Today, 23% of doctors own their own practice. Most doctors are employed by corporations. And because they're employed by corporations, the corporations and organizations set the parameters of their practice. They set the practice guidelines. They're in systems with insurance companies, third-party payers that set policy, that set prescribing what's authorized, what's not authorized. Because they work for somebody else, that person will set how many patients they have to see a day, how many minutes they have between patients. Where when you own your own practice, you go, you know what, I'm going to take 50 minutes and do a little education and you have a relationship, you care about your patient. Now you've got 15 minutes with your patient, or 10 perhaps, to do that annual checkup and get them in and out, and you don't have time to take that anymore. This is all profit-driven corporations that are interested in treating chronic health conditions that require frequent appointments and prescriptions because it keeps generating income for the corporations. Now,
Absolutely.
that's a process that is actually happening in this country, and it's very sad. It doesn't have to be this way. There are a few practitioners out there that are working holistically, naturopaths and others that are really looking to try to educate and get people back in harmony with the laws of health. But you have to, when I was in the military, I was told by an NCO about my paycheck. No one cares about your money more than you.
That's right.
If you find an error in your paycheck, don't expect them to find it and fix it for you. Watch your money yourself. No one should care more about your health than you.
Yeah.
And so everybody needs to take ownership of that and start managing and educating themselves on just the general principles of health and move towards a healthy lifestyle, which means healthy foods, and to the best that you can afford it, buying more raw produce and learning how to actually cook in healthy ways, and getting rid of the genetically modified, going organic. Be sure to clean your foods well to get the pesticides off. Learning how to cook in a healthy way. Online today, you can go online and get very healthy cooking lessons.
Yeah.
There's lots of videos out there on how to do that. So most people, even people who live in what you might call in a government-supported way, all of them have internet access and phones that I've ever seen. They can go online and go to YouTube too. I don't know anybody that really can't. Do you?
Can't say that I do.
Yeah. So these information is out there. So people are encouraging you to take that ownership and study for yourself, move towards a healthy diet, anti-inflammatory, whole food, plant-based, or Mediterranean diet. Anything else you guys want to say before we wind this one up?
One of the things, I know you and I've talked about this before, but one of the things that working in hospitals and stuff that can be very, from the faith-based, obviously people that will come in for, because they've lived unhealthily, they have to have a triple bypass. And we're praying for healthy outcomes. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, yes, we want God to be over the healing and all of this, but if they would have been following God's design laws of health, this might not have been a problem, right?
Yeah.
And so if rather than bringing in prayer and asking for supernatural assistance on the back end, after there's a problem, we can use the God-given wisdom and knowledge that we have to take care of the temple that we have from the spiritual side, so we can use our bodies to bring His kingdom and not have some of these problems on the back end.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I also think it's a matter of you see something, you say something in a most loving way at her, because think about food culturally, that component. For some families, food is love. An argument is solved with, here, I made you your favorite dessert, or I made you your favorite meal. It's not an apology. So as we're in a space as professionals, you see a patient that's struggling with their nutrition, finding a compassionate way to approach that subject, not being a dietitian, not being a nutritionist, not being a medical doctor.
Yeah, that's excellent as well. Have you ever heard the statement, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure"?
Yeah.
That's kind of what you're
Yes,
saying.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to also say though, I've talked about the Mediterranean plant-based. Indian diet has also been shown to be very healthy. It's anti-inflammatory. It's often highly plant-based too, because
Mhm.
but they also have like the turmeric, which is anti-inflammatory, shows benefit for the brain, and so a lot of the spices they use are very healthy as well. So that would be a healthy diet as well.
Whenever someone says that healthy food is not tasty food, I'm like, well, hold on, wait. You just have
Exactly.
to spice it.
Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, thank you for joining us today. We hope this was helpful for you. If you'd like a resource that has a lot of this information in it, The Aging Brain, Proven Steps to Prevent Dementia and Sharpen Your Mind. And if you have questions, send those in to questions@designformore.net, questions@designformore.net, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on Designed for More, brought to you by Come and Reason Ministries and Honey Lake Clinic. Also, don't forget to check out our other podcasts for more inspiring content.